Well, yeah, certainly. I mean, it was our fault. We made a mistake. Spotter said it was clear. It wasn't clear, and, I didn't want to tear my car up, tear his car up either. I respect everybody, and I demand respect. And, I apologized to the guy when he came over the car, explained to him what happened, and then he took it to another level when he started calling me an idiot and whatever else. And I don't appreciate that. I'm not going to take it. I told him how I felt. I called him out. He didn't show. And so, I'm good with it if he's good with it, but I'm not going to be disrespected by no means.
Yeah, I guess I had a dinner date at Applebee's last night that I didn't find out about until it was too late. It's a shame. Love their riblets and boneless wings, but...
All right, folks, welcome back to Meet Me at Applebee's, your number one unrefined motorsports podcast. It's Brian here again with Rob and Ashley. We're back with a Vegas post-weekend wrap-up. Folks, how we doing this week?
Pretty good. Didn't get to watch as much racing as I had hoped because the weather decided to shove its big old fat dick in everything this weekend. How about you, Drew?
But also saying we had tornado warnings all Saturday night. So
that's right. You were right in the middle of that big outbreak. Did you guys make it out okay?
Yeah, by the time it got to where I'm at, it kind of fizzled out, but it knocked out the cable all day Sunday, so I had to watch the Cup race on my phone, which not my favorite.
A lot of access issues for Georgia folks to watch NASCAR racing this weekend, which I'm sure we'll get to later.
Yeah, I can't say I had any of those issues, but we got stuff to talk about. Like I said, Vegas was this weekend not just along with High Limit, but High Limit, all the NASCAR races, even some F1 to talk about. So let's start it off. Thursday was supposed to be Bell versus Larson finally in 410s for the first time in a long time. But unfortunately, as Rob mentioned, the weather ruined pretty much everything, almost everything this weekend. We got qualifying in, and that was it.
Well, not only did they get qualifying in, but qualifying itself was a bit of a shit show because the timing and scoring went down, and the broadcast was... Their guess was that the timing loop or the sensor there was flooded out from all the rain that Vegas got. Again, it's a tired cliche, but of course, anytime NASCAR or anything related comes anywhere where there's no rain, it's going to rain, and Vegas definitely got rain. And yeah, they ran single car qualifying, hand scored, no idea what was really going on. And I sat there and watched every goddamn second of it. And I still couldn't tell you who got pole, and ultimately it didn't matter because the whole show got pushed to Friday.
Yep, which we will
get to in a second.
Get to in a second here. So the Truck Series race was supposed to run. Well, it did run, and then High Limit was supposed to follow it. But again, rain was a factor, and they did get the truck race in. But because of the rain and how late it was going to be, I mean, shit, man. By the time the truck race got started, I was like, I'm going to be up till 3 o'clock in the morning watching racing, which isn't like the worst thing in the world. But didn't really want to do that. But I just had to stay up till midnight watching the truck race, which. Was a fine race. I didn't mind it.
Was it? I didn't see it. I'll tell you what I did see. I turned the TV on or flipped over just in time to see Corey Haim in the lead, and then the rain came out again. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna find something else to do.
I wasn't sure if they were gonna call it then or not, but luckily it was a pretty quick little storm, and they were able to get it started back up again. But he ended up winning anyways, so you didn't miss a whole lot. Let's see here. People were giving shit to my favorite 12-year-old, 24-year-old, Tyler Ankrum, because he was like berating his crew after the race.
What a little
like saying
bitch,
it was there were issues with his tack or something with the electronics with the truck, and he's like, that's why we didn't win.
What?
And
raining. Electronics get fucked up during the rain.
Also, what about the other times where he's wrecked that truck by?
Well, this leads into a little bit of some notes we have for later on with the NASCAR nepotism list that you have. I didn't realize that Tyler was a nepo baby as far as just being in a paid ride, but I guess it makes sense because what's he won one race maybe if
Tyler
that?
Ankrum? Yeah. There's money behind him.
Yeah, so that makes sense why is where he is. So.
Also had Matt Crafton got a penalty for his crew guy sneakily working on the truck.
Yes. I saw that clip. Yep. Slipped a packer in there. Yep. Thought they wouldn't catch that shit.
And the second the officials walked by, he got in there so fast. Had his little lookout there too.
Oh, you gotta love that shit. Didn't help Crafton at all, I don't think.
Also, too, during one of the rain delays, somebody decided to somehow drive their car onto the front stretch, not of the track, but like the walkway between the fence and the grandstands.
Your own premium parking situation.
Yep.
This is impressive. As someone that's been to that track, my first thought was that it was a lost Uber driver because their Uber situation there is so confusing. So
It probably could have been.
Yeah, that's
Apparently that guy
fair
ran
assessment.
over a camera, and just it didn't
Sounds
go
expensive.
didn't go well once he got in there, and obviously the police were pissed. But it gave everyone something to watch. That's for sure.
Also, Mikey Waltrip got his wish.
Finally did.
Tanner Gay. I did it. Tanner Gray was
What
unfortunately.
it said on the back of the truck?
Tanner Gay was unfortunately Tanner Gay for a good portion of the race because his lettering on the back of his window was falling off, and there's a nice screenshot somebody took of the back of that. So that's poor
The
guy.
R fell off, and then I noticed by the end of the race, the A also fell off, but I don't know if maybe he got his crew guy to take it off because he didn't want to drive around in a truck that said gay on the back.
Well, let me tell you, that's a die cast I would actually put in a pre-order from Lionel.
Yeah. I'm sure
Well, I
Mikey
mean-
is already requesting.
Yeah. Specific mid-race, rain delay, come on.
Yep.
It was actually Tanner Gay previously, so I guess Mikey didn't get his full wish, but still, for the folks at home, it's close enough, and you got to hang on to what you get these days. So,
So
That was the truck race.
yeah,
that was the truck race pretty much.
Corey Heim, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep. So moving on to Saturday. So True Love once again had issues with the CW. Go ahead and explain.
Yeah. Well, so after all that fiasco last week and the CW in Atlanta promising that we would never have those issues again, they came out like 2 days later and said, well, just kidding. We are actually not going to show the Xfinity race at all on the CW in Atlanta because Braves spring training takes priority.
Oh, of
not
course.
even a real baseball game, the pretend spring one.
Now,
So they moved it over to Peachtree Sports Network,
Which is where you'd think spring training would be, is on the Peachtree
Yeah.
Sports Network.
yeah. For the future, though, I did hear some reports over the weekend that it sounds like the issue isn't so much like licensing or anything like that. It's more the fact that apparently, and I don't necessarily understand this because they already show qualifying and stuff on there, but apparently the app, as it sits right now, isn't built to handle like a nationwide broadcast of that level.
Bullshit.
So it sounds. Hey, that's just what I'm telling you. That's what apparently they've like CW has said. So I guess the plan is by sometime later in the season it will be nationwide access to watch the race on the app. So if you're in Detroit right now, you'll be able to watch it because apparently they've set up the app to where in the Michigan area you can do it.
They got good enough Wi-Fi up in Michigan to make it happen.
Something like that.
True Love, are you at the airport?
No, that is a lawnmower
Oh,
outside
okay.
the window. Sorry.
That's all right.
I have no control over
I
that.
thought maybe you were doing something a lot cooler than I am, standing in my basement right now. But
Yeah, we're recording a bit earlier, with the sun out and
we
people
are.
outside
Yeah.
today.
It is a beautiful
nice.
day. I hope everyone out there is enjoying some spring weather because it's fucking here, folks. And
Yep.
my little heart needs it. I can tell you that because this has been a shitty winter up here in New England.
Yeah. Did you actually even watch the race, True Love, or no?
Yeah, I did because they put it
Okay,
on
yeah.
Peachtree Sports Network, which
Yeah,
I'd never
yeah.
heard of, but luckily my cable had that random channel.
I was gonna say, do they stream it on their website? 'Cause
So I know you have more notes than I do. I mean, it was definitely a race. I can't remember anything like extremely exciting or controversial or anything happening.
It was a race. Kyle Busch was in the booth, which he did a phenomenal job.
Yep.
Klickerman was gone to Sebring. There was a moment where Josh Williams was sick, so he had to climb out of the car, and Ty Dillon replaced him.
Yep, that's right.
There's also a moment where Jamie Mack, instead of saying Kyle Sieg, he said Sieg Kyle, which
oh,
that
I think
Interesting merchandising opportunity.
backwards.
I don't think he was. I feel like he was saying like
Maybe he was talking to Kyle Busch, but still.
That or maybe Sig was running next to another Kyle. I feel like there was a reason why he said it that way, as opposed to just reversing his name. That's
Either way, it's unfortunate. No matter how you slice that one up, that
shouldn't have happened either way, for sure.
Yeah, but it was mostly just the Allgaier and Almirola battling show again.
Yeah, which thankfully nobody got put in any walls this week, and Allgaier got a clean win, so good for him.
There was a funny moment where they were battling, and Adam Alexander was like, "Yeah, they're both good guys. Almirola's a good guy." And then there was a pause because apparently someone in the booth threw up air quotes around "good guy," and they all started laughing. I was like, "Yeah, Allgaier won." And then there was that lunatic old guy in the background on Allgaier's crew that like was losing his mind. Allgaier was having like a nice calm winning interview, and this old guy is screaming. He's taking videos behind Allgaier. He's trying to put an American flag on Allgaier's car. He runs up and pours water on Justin's head. He drapes the American flag around Justin's shoulders, and Allgaier looked so annoyed.
Man, act like you've been there
so
before,
hard
man.
to ignore him. Yeah.
Like he's won plenty of races. Like it's always good to win, but I mean, it's not like he won the championship again or anything.
Yeah.
So.
I heard that it was his truck driver, which seems kind of random. Like, why is he even out there in a fire suit?
He's hanging around for the whole weekend, so had a few beers and real quick shout out to my cousin Jim. He just had some pretty serious surgery, and he's recovering right now. And I'm definitely thinking and praying about him. But he's a big Gator fan, so hopefully he got to watch that and got some positive energy out of that, because I know he loves Justin Allgaier, and through him I've kind of become a Justin Allgaier fan too, because I like to see him happy. So if you're listening to this, bud, thinking about you. And how about old Gator, son? How about it?
And yeah, we'll talk about it later, but Kyle Busch also did commentary for High Limit later that night, and it was again, great job, Kyle Busch. I obviously everybody wants to hear him in the booth once he's done with his career, but I wonder how much like Brexton will affect that. Yeah. I'm sure he'll end up in a booth somewhere after the fact, but I mean
shit, Brexton's already been in the booth before, so the whole family's got a career in the media coming at some point.
But we're gonna talk about this now because my Saturday night went from Xfinity race to watching High Limit, and then I, for the first time in my life, watched the entire F1 race. Yeah. I was not planning on this, but the way the timing worked out with High Limit, it was only midnight when the F1
perfect,
race was.
Honestly,
yeah, I mean, it was just like, all right, I'm already up anyways. Like, friend of the show, Stacy, and I were talking, and obviously she was excited. She's a big F1 fan, so I was like, all right, I'll at least watch some of this. So I turned it on, and I don't know, one of the rookies crashed in like the parade lap.
Yeah, so it was super rainy, and the conditions were, I don't know, not ideal to send cars out there on cold tires, but it's Formula One, right? You should be able to handle that. But yeah, poor Isaac Hadjar, in his debut for Williams, just fucking bends it on the formation lap.
I'm just starting here. Now, these are supposed to be the best drivers in the world, and you see all this shit happening. Not to mention the fact this is supposed to be the richest motorsport in the entire planet, and these motherfuckers can't have a jet dryer on the track. Oh, we don't need jet dryers. We're not NASCAR. Well, a third of the field biffed it on the fucking first lap, so good job there, including Carlos Sainz, who he's a winner. Like, he's not a rookie, and he just biffed it all by himself going into a turn.
Yeah, sorry. Hadjar drives for whatever Toro Rosso is now, Racing Bulls. They've changed the name of that team like 50 times. Toro Rosso, whatever. But yeah.
Doesn't matter, Rob, because this shit sucks, and I'm never going to talk about it again.
Okay.
Like, I put it this way when I was watching it, like, this is racing for people who got into racing because of a reality show. And I say that because, like, as we all know, the on-track stuff is really not that great with F1. I mean, it was pretty boring. There were a couple passes, but the racing itself was just like a parade. It was all the other stuff, like all throughout the race, probably the first third of the race, every few minutes, like, oh, this person's under investigation for a safety car violation, which Stacy explained to me was like the cars have to be spaced out a certain way behind the pace car.
Yeah, it's a timing thing.
Yeah, and it's just like, what the fuck? Like, a half hour, like, or half the race, they were just, this driver did it, and this driver did it, and this driver did it. And, you know, they keep talking about the DRS stuff and the tires and this, that, and the other thing. And, like, none of it I mean, it obviously relates to the on-track stuff, but none of it is actually talking about what's going on in the track because everybody's just driving around following each other. I know at one point, too, it started to rain again, and forgive me because I don't remember all their names, but was it Pistoria? Is that his?
Oscar Piastri.
Oscar Piastra, and then who was it? Lando Norris? Like, they both spun out leading.
Team McLaren.
Yeah, Team McLaren, both the cars that were leading the race, like, decided to stay out a little bit longer and both spun out in the rain because they didn't have rain tires on.
Yeah, this
and
was
just like, it was a shit show, man. Like, I just don't understand the appeal. Like, I mean, I do, but I don't. Like,
I mean,
why
it's
so
the same
big,
shit in road racing and NASCAR too, half the time. So
it's not. It's not though. I don't really think it is. I mean, because at least there's stuff going on in the track that's worth watching. Like, there's nothing going on in the F1 race that, like, is really enthralling to me.
Yeah.
And you know, some nerd got into me on Twitter, like, you know, you're not watching it for the right reasons. I'm like, if I'm not paying attention to cars passing each other and doing stuff on the track, what the fuck else am I supposed to be paying attention to? And
well, let me give you the counterpoint here. I thought it was okay. I mean, you guys know I am a Formula One fan. The politics and the business side of it have kind of turned me off past few years. Not to mention, again, the on-track action has been kind of lackluster with all the. Well, first it was Mercedes domination, and then the Verstappen era kind of came in, and I didn't like how they treated Sergio, which, by the way, we all saw that it wasn't Sergio Perez's fault. It's just that second Red Bull car is dog shit because Liam Lawson was like in 89th place out of 14 cars all day, so that was something. But I don't know, like, you aren't wrong. The drama from this race and the excitement came from the outside factors. The rain falling and everyone trying to make decisions on when they were going to come in and change their tires. I mean, there was a moment where Ferrari was 1-2, and they kind of screwed that strategy up by staying out a little too long. Again, like Brian said, both of the leaders, Norris and Piastri, went off the track. Norris with a pretty amazing save, honestly, to keep it out of the wall, and Piastri ended up beaching himself like he was mudding out in the woods or something, but he got out of there.
Yeah.
And then Norris ended up winning the race with, I think it was Verstappen and Russell 2 and 3. But I don't know, I thought it was okay. I like Australia. It's a good street circuit. It doesn't have a lot of the characteristics of some of the other permanent circuits that have been built in the past 20 years. You know, all the, like, Herman Tilke, Middle Eastern oil country bullshit. But I don't know. It kind of is what it is. But without that rain, I think I might be singing a tune a little bit more similar to Brian, because I do believe that Piastri was faster than Norris, but Norris is the number one driver, and they told him to back off. So, which I have always hated team orders. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's awful, too. So, yeah, talk about pure racing, motherfuckers. Team orders, fuck off.
But overall, you know, for what it was pretty entertaining. Again, there's a lot of places I will watch in Formula One. There's a lot of places I don't really care to watch because I just don't like the tracks all that much. But I don't know. Australia is one of the ones I do like. It's super fast. I do enjoy watching, ripping them around. And honestly, like, Formula One races, they have a 2-hour time limit anyway, so it's not like, you know, I'm going to be sitting there for 6 hours watching these guys. So
all I saw from the race was that kid that wrecked on the parade lap, sobbing uncontrollably for a very long time.
Lewis's dad came up.
Yeah, which was a nice moment.
Yeah, there was a really. Sorry, go ahead.
Some kid upset that his butt was wet from the rain.
Yeah, Charles Leclerc, his cockpit was filling with water for some reason, and he told his team about it, and they're like, "Well, it must be the water," and he was like, "Okay."
Yeah, that was great. That was probably my favorite moment of the race, to be honest. Like, that was pretty funny.
But yeah, will I be tuning into the Chinese Grand Prix? No, probably
At
not.
3 a.m.? No.
Absolutely not. I will not be watching that.
I won't be tuning into any more of these things unless I'm, like, home in the morning and, like, oh, it's the last 10 laps on or something.
It's a good breakfast thing to have on in the background, you know. But yeah, I'm not. It's just not the same, especially when there's only 14, 15 cars out there running because everyone, you know, bended on the parade lap. I just, you know, I have a hard time with that. So.
Anyways, fuck F1. We're on to Sunday now. The big old Cup race, which was a very good race. But before it started,
let's talk about the pre-race.
Yeah, so I
Mikey
actually
got his grid walk back.
Yeah, Mikey was back on the grid walk, and I didn't watch the pre-race, but I did see this clip that was brought up. Mikey went to go talk to SVG, and he asked him what it was like to see the Backstreet Boys and Jimmy Hart. Now, first off,
He called him Sean Van Gisbergen to begin with.
Yeah, he did call him that
Off
too.
to a great start.
Yeah.
So Hulk Hogan's beer sponsored Stenhouse. Hulkster has been on a horrible run of personal appearances lately, including getting booed at Monday Night Raw and like missing a bunch of appearances and all this other shit happening. So rather than risk being booed at probably one of the most read audiences he'll appear at all year, he decided to send the Mouth of the South Jimmy Hart in his place
I'll take that.
to appear, which again, fuck Hulk Hogan. But so Mikey asks Shane this, and Shane is just like, I've never heard of either of those people. I mean, because granted, he's what, like early 30s and lived in Australia, so like, why would he know
New
who
Zealand.
either of those people are? What, you know what I mean? Same continent, whatever.
Okay, Mikey.
It's funny you say that because the second part of this relates directly.
Listen, I'm not interviewing SVG, so it doesn't.
It's true.
Well, he's asked him that, and then Shane goes, I don't know who those people are. And Mikey's like, well, they're like men at work. And Shane's like, I'm not from Australia. And he just seems so annoyed because I'm sure he's so sick of the Australia comments and the Australian
British.
stereotypes. Yeah. And it's like,
Men at Work is I mean, granted, Mikey's like 60, so I guess that
He
makes
picked
sense.
the only Australian band he knew of, or only band he knows of from that part of the world, period.
yeah.
And then, I mean, Mikey did have the awareness to be like, wow, this is not going as well as I thought it would, and then immediately disappeared. So. Yeah, very enjoyable. Shane not having it, or Sean, whatever his name is, and yeah, definitely not Australian. So
Yeah. They also had Morgan Freeman there,
Yes.
giving the command, which he had some great little moments too that were captured on social media. Like, apparently he showed up to the race wearing a Bubba Wallace hat, and he told Bubba that he watches the race every Sunday to pull for him. So I thought that was cool.
it's cool.
And there was a moment where he's hanging with Bubba, and Austin Cindric is talking to him, and Bubba's kind of joking around, talking shit on Cindric, and Cindric shakes Morgan Freeman's hand, and Morgan then jerks his hand back and goes, "Don't ever touch me again."
I wonder if he thought that Austin Cindric was Blippy.
Could be.
He did say he was the driver of the 2 car, so he made it very clear that he was there to race. But
Not children's television star Blippy.
Yeah.
Which,
At driver intros, they had Morgan Freeman in line right after John Snyder, who was also a special guest, air quotes. And it was funny to watch every single driver completely ignore John Snyder, who was trying to engage with them, and go beeline to Morgan Freeman.
yeah, I mean, Bo Duke's been around at the racetrack for like 30 years. Like, you probably shook his
It's
hand
old
before.
news.
Yeah.
wait. John Schneider from Dukes of Hazzard was there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That another one who's like done a bunch of like openly racist stuff.
Racist
That's
shit,
insane. Like, what the
That's
fuck?
why I'm a strictly Luke Duke gal now. Fuck John
Listen,
Snyder.
I can show you some. There's a very funny DUI video that came out like I think last year of Tom getting arrested for DUI, and he's like explaining himself, and it's like, oh, my wife's gonna divorce me, and it's a fun watch.
Sounds like a possible video of the week candidate due to the connection. So look forward to that one, Brian.
Anyway, there was a race after that.
Yeah, there was a race, and I thought it was pretty decent.
was
I
fine,
mean, there
yeah.
wasn't any tire drama or anything to talk about. Well, there wasn't tire. When I say tire,
Well,
as
it
far,
was
I
wheel
meant as far
drama.
as there was different wheel drama. There wasn't like the reds versus yellows or anything,
Gotcha.
but no, everybody's wheels were falling off like it was 3 years ago. Multiple guys like Kyle Busch. There was one point Christopher Bell pitted. They knew he had a loose wheel, so he just jumped into another joke,
was
Briscoe's
Briscoe.
pit,
Yeah.
Briscoe.
to have them tighten it up. And
Surprised
Denny mentioned
the hell out of them. Yeah.
Well, Denny
Yeah.
mentioned on his podcast, they talked about it, that whole deal, that this was probably talked about ahead of time, where, like, if this were to happen, this is what you do. You just find the next, your next teammate's pit stall and just do it. So he made it sound like this is probably something we'll see happen a little more often, just in case, like, teams will prepare for this, especially since the only penalty he got was pitting outside the box.
It's the longest line. Yeah.
Yeah, so he would have gotten a worse penalty had he not done that. So it's definitely something I can imagine will happen, and hopefully NASCAR doesn't make a rule about that, because it's probably better for everybody that people just fix the tires if they can and continue racing. So
Yeah, and they did kind of elaborate on what the language of the rule that allowed that on DBC this week, which, by the way, I love that show so much more now. And I was always a regular listener. I have no problem with the Brett era, but this just being a bunch of modified guys sitting around, that's my shit. But Tommy Ball went into a good explanation of what it was, and the big piece was, as long as you have approval from NASCAR to do so. Now, I don't know when that approval takes place. Was that something that happened in Charlotte months ago, where TRD went to them and said, hey, maybe if this happens, we'll do this, and they said sure, and didn't make it public? Or if that was in the moment, let's talk to the tower and see if we could do this. I don't think there was enough time.
Yeah, it was like 10 seconds. Like there's no way they could have gotten that approved that quick.
But yeah, I think, and they were saying this on the show, that you're definitely going to be seeing this more often now in these situations, now that there's sort of a free pass to do so.
Yeah, and even Denny mentioned, like, what about single car teams? Well, those guys are probably all using development pit crews from other bigger teams anyway, so there will most likely just be an alliance with whoever they're getting the pit crew with to go and do that.
That or more of the manufacturer stuff.
Yeah, that too.
Chevy, Ford, they have a ton of cars out there, so whoever's placed at the end of pit road is got to be that guy. So.
Yep. Let's see. So what else? Larson was fast. Blaney had to start in the back because he crashed in practice, and he had a good day going until there was a wreck that involved him and John Hunter and
when Blaney cleared himself.
Keselowski and Austin Dillon. Yeah.
He had an interesting interview afterwards. Jamie Little was interviewing him outside the medical center or whatever, and it was very Casey Kane-esque, where she asked him at the end, are you feeling okay? And he goes, thanks, and walks off. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Granted, it is loud down there, but yeah, I thought the same thing. He got his bell rung pretty good.
And were there any other major notes? Anything we're missing?
There's lots of speeding penalties. Briscoe also lost a wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that leads us to the big finish. So I'll say this. I was not expecting Josh Berry to be the next guy to get his first win. Like, if you were to ask me, like, which driver is going to get their first win next, or like which new driver team combo is going to fire off first, Berry probably wouldn't have been my answer for either one of those, but he did it. He
sure did. Yeah.
And he did it in I wouldn't say dominating fashion, but I mean, he ran up front all day. He qualified good, and even the rest of the Penske guys. I mean, granted they're the Wood brothers, but it's more or less Penske team. They all had up and down days, but he was consistent all day. Vegas is a track that he's won at before in the Xfinity Series, and he was able to pass Daniel Suarez with like 13, 14 to go, and just sailed off and got his first win. And this is one of those wins that I don't think I've heard a negative thing about from any single person anywhere.
Well, what could you hate about it? It's a popular driver, a popular team. There was no bullshit leading into the finich. It was pure merit. And yeah, I love the shit out of that, especially when Josh Berry. The only thing I really hated about it, I'm kind of stepping all over myself over here just because this pissed me off so much. You got a first-time winner coming to the line. It's evident. Suarez has nothing for him. He's going to get occupied by Priest if he can get up there, which he was starting to close. Berry's got this thing locked up. And you have 5 or 6 laps to kind of build it. And Mike Joy started to do this. And again, I'm a big Mike Joy fan. I think he's such an asset and a legend, and I don't have much negative to say about him until this exact moment where Josh Berry takes the white and he says, up until now, or something to the effect of this, up until now, the highlight of Josh Berry's career on paper was that he went to high school with Taylor Swift.
What? He's the winningest cars tour driver of all time.
Immediately
He's got
got a
5
text.
Xfinity wins.
Immediately got a text saying like, "God damn, Mike Joyce sucks for that." I forget who said it, but it's like all that time to
was
build
pretty
up the
cringy.
story. And like for those of you who are listening who might not remember this, Josh Berry was on iRacing like 10 years ago, or not even iRacing. I think it was like NASCAR 2003 or whatever with Dale Jr.
It was before iRacing was a thing for sure.
Yeah, they were like just in some lobby together, and they'd race together, and Josh would beat Dale, and they became friends or whatever. And then, Josh ended up in one of Dale's late models and ran the Cars Tour and won a shit ton of races there, and truly broke into the sport in a way that we haven't seen. God,
we just don't see.
we just don't
very
see it
often.
anymore,
Yeah.
and especially with a team like the Wood brothers, who have been in the sport longer than anyone else out there. Penske aside, like that's still the family running the day-to-day operation of that team.
Yeah.
And you're gonna
Celebrating
bring
their-
fucking Taylor Swift into this moment? Calm the fuck on. I was so pissed off. Like I slammed my beer down. I was like, no.
And
Yeah, come on,
of
Mike.
course,
You can do better than that.
of course, we can't mention this win without talking about the last few years of the Wood brothers, and how everybody did.
Well, that paints certain drivers in a particular light, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
I mean, everybody kind of looks at the Wood brothers as like almost a charity case, which they really aren't. And I don't want to shit on Harrison too much because I don't think he's horrible, but he shouldn't have been in that car. He's way too young. He needs way more experience, and he proved it by
Not to
getting
mention
one.
he did score a win.
Yeah, he did win,
He
but
won.
it's a Daytona win, which is like. Obviously, it counts as much as any other one, but at the same time, like Daytona's a track where surprise winners happen.
But you know who
He never-
didn't do that? You know who didn't get a win?
Yep.
Who
Good
wants
old
to say
Matty
it?
D.
There it is.
Good old Matty D. Almost the exact opposite of Josh Berry, a guy who whined his way into rides and played the woe is me card, and when he finally got those opportunities, he did not capitalize on them. So, to me, it
It didn't have
just
to be
shows
that
not-
way. It didn't have to be that way either.
It didn't,
'cause
but it did.
But it did,
that's,
yeah.
that's what happened.
That's what
you
makes
know,
it
I
all
think-
so much more funny than, yeah. Oh God, it's so funny to see that though. Yeah, just Josh Berry going out there and kicking ass. And granted, the Wood brothers did clean a little house in the off season. They got some different folks working on the team and behind the pit wall and all that. So definitely had something to do with it. And you say that Josh winning is a surprise, which it is. But honestly, like. He got a top 10 in Phoenix, and he's been pretty close to the front in all the plate races, and
Yeah,
did
he's-
okay for himself at Coda. And it's not that surprising, really. It's just kind of under the radar because we're not used to paying attention to the 21, which I think we're going to have to now.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean he's in the playoffs now. I'm not going to say he's a championship contender, but do I think he's going to win again this year?
Could be.
I feel like there's a solid chance.
Could
I
be.
mean, I think he's definitely going to run well and beat everybody's expectations. So
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet. Speaking of underdogs, of course, Daniel Suarez getting second out of that.
he needed that.
Yeah, he really needed that. I know we talked about how he's on his deathbed last week after the run he's had. And I'm sure all the Daniel Suarez fans were happy to see that. And that's exactly what he needs to do from here on out to just continue to be better than his teammates. And then Ryan Preece.
Yes, unfortunately, we didn't get to hear from Ryan Preece after the race because we had to watch a.
Well, we had to get to Patrick Dempsey and
yeah,
watch him fucking wheel a GT car around for a couple hours. So
couldn't have cut down one commercial break extra to get a Preece interview.
I don't understand why every week Fox has an hour and a half pre-race. Like, that's just not necessary. And then we get 2 interviews after the race. And then
you can set up the storylines for a Sunday in 30 minutes. You can just cut all the nonsense out.
Yeah, we don't need Clint Boyer finding the best tailgating barbecue every week.
But they do
before
that
the
shit
race.
during the race anyway. They play it again. So and they stick Jamie McMurray up in a tower somewhere, or it's just you don't need to do that. But there are news stories to tell after the race. So yeah, I'm with you. I don't understand why the emphasis on pre-race. And I'm assuming it has to do with local news or, Patrick Dempsey or whatever the fuck, But
I mean, it's on
disappointing.
FS1. It wasn't even on Fox. It's ridiculous. And I feel like for everybody out there who's still bitching about, we got to sign up for another service. Well, you're gonna have to pay $18 for the 5 races we're gonna get on Amazon, and I guarantee you it's gonna be worth every single penny that you pay. If you only want to sign up for those 2 months they're gonna have races, I think everybody who's bitching about it is gonna change their tune.
I mean, Fox, they did a lot of house cleaning over the winter. They fired a lot of production people,
and they just the lead producer or whatever is going to, I think, football or something. So maybe it'll change a little bit in the next coming weeks.
Maybe so. But what I was going to say was, like, they obviously don't want to spend money on this.
Yeah.
And, Peacock is able to put on a post-race show. Like, the NBC team does a pretty good job of talking to as many people as they can after the race. Of course, there's MRN as well, which is free to everybody. So if you want that post-race coverage, just flip your radio on. But, NBC can do it. NBC seems to care. And I think one of our biggest gripes about the Fox broadcast every single week is the perceived lack of care, from the direction all the way down to the fact that they cut these things short, or, they send Mikey out there to spill fucking taco fillings on top of Denny Hamlin's car, or, call Shane Van Gisbergen the wrong name, it's just shit like that. It's so disappointing when they have a streaming option. If you have cable, if you want to watch that race, you already got to have cable anyway because it's on FS1. And then they have a streaming app, which I watch all of the FS1 races and even the Fox ones on the Fox Sports app. So even half an hour of coverage after the race on the app, most people have access to that. I don't see why that's not something they could do. But I know it's money and, production value and getting everybody off the clock as quickly as possible. So it's a bummer.
Even with the issues I've had with CW lately, CW interviews 10, 15 drivers after the race every week. So.
Yeah. I mean, their product is great. The CW is great. We've sang their praises every single week this year. It's just the availability of it, which Fox doesn't have that problem. They have the ability to do it. So why not do it I guess is my question.
One other note about Josh Berry. I just want to say I'm so glad that he won running that Motorcraft paint scheme and not whatever that god-awful purple paint scheme was that he had last week.
Yeah, the Wood Brothers, I don't know if it's because they have such an iconic branding on their car most of the time that when something else is on there, it just looks like dog shit. I don't know if it just makes it worse or if it's just legitimately bad, which I think last week's was... Both, yeah. So... Yeah,
one other note about Vegas, which is not on the track, but I'm sure y'all saw that Hamlin won, I think, a combined total of, I think he said over $300,000 on slot machines.
Yeah, yeah. Did you listen to the podcast?
Yeah.
Or no?
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
I did.
He broke it down to where he's like, I started off with 11 grand. And each pull was like $300, that was my question, because I mean I've only played slots a handful of times in my life, and I am definitely not putting $300 a pull. Like one loss at $300, like, yep, my weekend is done. Like I just I gambled dimes and quarters on NASCAR races. I'm not dropping $300 on a pull, but no, I mean he won like 300 grand, pissed off the casino because he was like cashing out quick, and I mean good for him, I guess. Like.
A Cosby sweater. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Denny is definitely one of those guys that, like, he's not Ty Gibbs level of fashionista, but he definitely wants to wear cooler shit. Yeah. Which we didn't even mention. Might as well get to this now. Ty Gibbs had another dog shit race, and nobody knows what's going on with him. Like, his mom was interviewed on like Sirius or whatever, and like they're concerned. And
I can tell you that.
Yeah, he we'll get to it, but he flipped in. He entered the high limit race on Saturday, and flipped on like lap 3 all by himself. Yeah. So,
dude, that interview he gave with the Monster Girls right before the race is, I'm just here with my friends, and just kind of mumbled his way through some other. Sounds like me at like 2 a.m. at the Chili Bowl. Yeah, just not all there.
He might be missing some Bible studies. Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah, maybe that's the problem.
But yeah, you want to talk about guys like Suarez or even Ryan Preece, which, by the way, I loved at the top 3 of that race was like a Survivors of SHR support group.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, but yeah, Ty Gibbs is just not doing well. When you finish
in points,
when you finish dead last in a sprint car race and it's still your best finish of the season, aside from 18th at Phoenix or some shit like that, that's a bad deal.
Yeah,
it's a bad deal. So who knows? It's shocking.
It is, but I guess the question is, how long is Coach Pop going to keep him in that car? That's.
I mean, he's got a pretty long runway out of anybody, you know.
Oh, for sure.
There's definitely sponsorship that they can pull. I think they're going to give him a chance. And, I mean, he's run good in the next gen before, or at least better than this. So I think there's definitely a tie problem here. I don't know what it is. Maybe, you know, not to get into the family history or anything like that, but maybe he's having a hard time mentally dealing with some of the stuff he's been thrown in the past year or two. That can fuck anybody up. But also, there's a lot of new folks on that team. There's a new crew chief. There's a lot of different people working. Maybe they just don't have it figured out, and all these things are kind of coalescing into a big shit mess, which we're seeing now. But, I mean, you're not wrong, though. Like, at some point, the nepotism will run out, and they're going to want to get somebody in that car, especially when you got people like Corey Haim coming up the pipeline in a couple years. Better tighten the ship up pretty quickly.
Yeah. Moving on though, so I got to give a little credit to Ashley for this. So
I didn't know it was going to turn into what it turned into.
Yeah. So
Ballooned.
before the race, Ashley sent a screenshot of a shot of Morgan Freeman with some kid in the background wearing a noggin boss.
Which I knew who the kid was, and when I sent this screenshot to the group chat, I assumed that they also knew who this kid was.
Grandpa had no idea.
Yeah, either I missed you saying that,
We've only ever discussed one guy who wears a custom noggin boss.
Well, you couldn't tell from that shot that it was custom necessarily, but regardless, I tweeted out, no one wearing a noggin boss should be this close to Morgan Freeman.
Which is true.
And, you know, it got a lot of positive responses on Twitter. And it turns out that it was worn by a kid named Vanilla Wafer, who he's a YouTube creator and, you know, considers himself a NASCAR journalist. And we did actually, like, he found my tweet and was like, oh, I guess they're not fans of my noggin boss. And he was like, you should watch my videos. I'm like, I never will. Thank you.
But you did. We talked about it.
Yes, we watched. He was the guy who did the Ware family video, and I know I goofed on him in that video. So it's like, okay, well, this again tells me all I need to know about you. So I will never watch any of your videos ever again.
Me and my typical, you know, keep on the sunny side attitude. Tried to give the kid some credence in that episode, and, you know, like, well, you know, he'll get better, blah blah blah. But now after seeing this and watching that interaction, I'm also on Team Brian here. And I'm like, the darkness enter me, and I'm with you. Fuck this guy.
My favorite response was somebody replied to me and was like, I know exactly. Like, I went to high school with that kid. He is the biggest wiener, and his personality will never change.
Yeah, nice
like,
kid,
okay,
but
well.
a huge wiener, but not like the cool huge wiener. Just is a huge wiener.
Apparently, he was at the Vegas race to, I guess, promote Real American Beer and also to be a super fan of Matty D, who was also wearing a noggin boss.
He sponsored a car, which I'm assuming was Matty D, because he said, oh, the car I sponsored led a couple laps in the Xfinity race. So, I have to assume that's who he was talking about because, you know, great. So, yeah, kid's a nerd. Don't watch his videos.
A friend of the program, Buddy, went scorched earth on him, which I got great joy out of that. So, shout out, Buddy.
Moving on.
Well, we're talking about big wieners and stuff. You want to talk about the Ferrari hat real quick?
Yeah, I guess might as well. Little F1 chat along with all the stuff we already talked about. F1 Puma does a lot of Ferrari merch, and they put out a pair of shorts and a hat.
Yeah, they did.
That just, you know, Rob said it last week. I'll say it this week. Yeah. It looks like a big load of cum all over these things.
Yeah.
Just awful. Like, I don't know how it got approved. How did it get all the way to production? Yeah. How is this released?
The Puma Bust Collection.
Yeah, it is just like the most egregious, gross merch I've ever seen.
Yeah, the hat is bad. The shorts are worse.
Yeah, it is just awful. Purely awful.
Like, I could almost get it if it was IndyCar merch, because Milk and the 500, but, like, even still, gross.
No.
No
I
clothing
don't.
should have white splatter on it in that pattern. It just doesn't.
And the
it doesn't
pattern,
work.
Brian, it's just
Yeah, I mean, it's
Very
you look at it.
distinct pattern.
It will be in the show post. You will, if you haven't seen it already, you will see it in the show post.
and you can order it as well if that's your bag. You know,
If you really want to see it.
yeah, this podcast is not into shaming anyone for their kinks, but so if this is your thing, you want to look like that. Without having to do it, there is a hat for you, and you can show your support for Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc.
Yep.
Speaking of kinks, that reminds me that there was a furry couple at the Las Vegas race walking around in their furry costumes with their, I think, William Byron shirts on.
Yeah,
I
makes
think
sense.
so. Yeah, which makes sense.
Checks out.
Yeah.
It's a wild, weird world out there, folks.
All right. Well, this is weird, but a little less weird. Casey Mears announced he's coming back to NASCAR because he wants to hit 500 career starts, and I think he's at 490 right now.
Yep.
Still
and
ways to go.
Yeah, still a ways to go. But this, of course, reignited the how come Mike Wallace didn't get approved chatter, and it's like
Suspended.
right off the bat, like
Suspended.
Casey has ran more recently, and he's only approved for Martinsville. He's not approved for the big tracks. He has to run the shorter tracks before he'll get the approval for the super speedways. So
Even
pretty
then,
much
Casey
negates
Mears-
anybody.
Casey Mears not suspended. Mike Wallace is suspended. That's
Yeah,
it.
that too. Casey Mears did
Mike
not say
probably
anything
would have gotten
racist.
approved to run Daytona if he wasn't suspended, but that's it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the end of the discussion right there.
Yeah.
I do like Casey Mears. I'm excited to see him back. I mean, maybe he just really likes, nice, even numbers, but I can't imagine running 10 races in a Carl Long car at Martinsville is going to be all that much fun. So we'll see how that dream stays alive after that, because that's going to be rough.
He did just say 500 starts. It's not like he's trying to get any wins or anything out of this.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Next up, so what is the origin of this driver nepotism chart that you've got posted here?
Well, I got it from a group chat who saw it on Twitter. I've seen this thing posted here and there, but somebody went through the current Cup Series lineup and made a chart which has some very serious inaccuracies, but it does kind of outline where some folks' money came from and the level of nepotism that it took them to get there. And
Yeah,
there's
I mean-
different color codes and shit too to determine who gets. Of course, Ty Gibbs, his grandfather's a team owner. Ty Dillon, of course, Pop is his Pop, so that makes perfect sense why he's still on a ride. Justin Haley getting his career fund at the beginning. I thought the funny one here was that Tyler Reddick's dad had money from a business, but noticeably absent from the red tier nepotism list is Joey Logano, who they just make him out to be like some fucking overall wearing garage mechanic who just happened to be real good at stock cars. But his dad is Tom Logano and is fucking loaded and totally funded his way into the Cup Series. So that's bullshit.
Same thing with Noah Gragson too. I mean, his dad had lots of money and then killed a bunch of people in a DUI. So there's that. But what other inaccuracies were there?
I mean, a lot of this. Cole Custer's obviously not. His dad is. His last name might as well be Haas.
Well, I mean, yeah, he's
Which
on
is
there.
fair.
That's not inaccurate.
They list the drive for diversity stuff in here, which it's not really nepotism per se, but Kyle Larson and Bubba Wallace and Daniel Suarez definitely got some funding. The Carlos Slim money behind Daniel Suarez at the beginning is notably absent, and Carlos Slim is like the richest fucking guy on the planet besides Elon Musk, so I thought that was kind of funny. That didn't make it. But yeah, it was kind of interesting to see this list of people, and Ryan Preece.
Zane Myth come from money?
Zane
Zane Smith?
Not according
Does
to this
he?
chart.
Right.
I thought he did though. I thought he had some money behind him. Maybe we're making that up, but
I don't know.
I mean, let's
Maybe
be
it's
honest.
just his face that.
This list definitely excluded a lot of people that had some very serious financial backing in the beginning. And But still, kind of neat to look at. And there's a couple things I didn't realize that I saw in here. I can't think of them off the top of my head by looking at it.
I thought it was interesting that for Kyle Busch, they said, well, Kurt was already a Cup driver when he made his first NASCAR start, but they were racing like legend cars and shit together as kids. So it's like they're not like 20 years apart from each other. Like Kyle didn't get his ride just because of Kurt, you know?
And not to mention, Greg Biffle had a big hand in that, talking to Jack Roush to get them signed in the first place, or get them into the Cup Series. Of course, Kyle ended up going to Hendrick eventually.
Yeah.
And, the story is what it is now. But, yeah, not a whole lot of nepotism coming out of the Busch family for sure. But, yeah, definitely an interesting list. I wish it was a little more accurate because I think people tend to throw the term rich kid around a little too freely and liberally sometimes because most people in the Cup Series did come from money, because there's an old adage that if you want to make a small fortune in racing, you got to start with the big one, and that is pretty much NASCAR these days. So.
And it's funny how Corey LaJoie isn't on that list either, so that's funny.
Yeah.
Let's see. So
well, that's because he's not.
Well, he's not in Cup anymore, but there's that.
Still ahead of Cody Ware in the points, though. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think I was looking at this. Jimmy Johnson's still ahead of him.
Oh,
Corey LaJoie Ware is sandwiched right between Jimmy and Corey. So
very cool.
Yeah. So Dart for the Week this week is one I found, and this does come from the shitposting group because a lot of fun stuff can be found there. Of course, Morgan Freeman being at the race and being a Bubba Wallace fan and getting all these photos with Bubba, what kind of reaction that's going to get from some of the NASCAR fan base. And I got a couple good ones, and this is the one that I picked out. It was
can't
a comment.
say the other one.
Well, I'll make a note of the other one, but this was on Facebook. It was a comment by a guy named Joe Reek, who does not have a profile picture.
Of course.
And it's in all caps.
He doesn't have lowercase on his keyboard either.
It's in all caps, so I'm not going to shout it, but here it is. Morgan Shepherd, you, sir, are the real American person. Yes, sir, you are. You are wearing the wrong hat and sponsoring the wrong person. Bubba Wallace is a piece of garbage and a racist person and un-American piece, as in peace sign, of dog shit too. Un-American, yes, Bubba Wallace is this. That is my Darf of the Week. And there was another comment that I cut off from the screenshot, and I'll paraphrase it, but there was a woman who said something similar, but she ended it by saying, you should root for Rajah Caruth. He is a true black. So, yes.
This is exactly why I never get on Facebook.
Yeah. Don't. It's bad. So yeah, that's your Darf of the Week, folks. And with that, we dive back into the septic tank, even though we were already in it briefly.
Kind of started in there a little bit, but left the door open.
We talked a little bit about high limit stuff, and I would say the other note I'll say about high limit before I pass it off to Rob, because of all the weather stuff, we were robbed of the Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell show finally in 410s again. Because even though Larson and Ty Gibbs still entered the race on Saturday, this came down from just Christopher and Adam Stevens, not Gibbs management. They decided that they are not going to race on Saturdays. He'll race other stuff, but to be prepared, I mean, this could be his championship season. He's on a roll right now. I can understand that. Even though I was bummed to not see him out there, I understand taking that approach. So we did not get that. But Rob, what did we get?
Well, it doesn't hurt to have Darren Pittman as your backup driver for Kreitz Racing. That guy's a fucking monster. Even though I flipped him off at the Chili Bowl, which I'm still eternally sorry for, that guy definitely put on a show, which we'll get to in a second. We talked about high limit and some of the struggles on Thursday with qualifying, and of course the Friday show getting completely rained out. The Friday show, of course, being the postponed Thursday show. Not a great look for the high limit series, but not a whole lot they can do. You can't really do anything with weather or running at 2 a.m. or running at the same time as the Cup race, since I know a lot of people had tickets for both events, and they're just trying to do their best for the fans. But, yeah, I'm a little confused about the Christopher Bell decision because I kind of thought he was entered in that car for both nights to begin with.
Same.
And it's not like they were going to run on Friday anyway. It was Thursday, Saturday, so I don't know if Darren Pittman was always the guy for Saturday or not. But the top wing definitely said Bell on it, and it did not say Pittman. So a little confused about that decision. My personal theory, which we'll kind of get into track conditions here in a second, was that it was pretty rough out there. Lots of rocks. They don't run the Vegas dirt track really at all anymore, and certainly not for 410s. And the track was very rocky and pretty treacherous, and it was super windy as well. So definitely not a situation you want to put one of your Cup drivers in if you're Adam Stevens, I assume. So I'm wondering if they watched qualifying on Thursday night and said, you know what, you're not doing this anymore. But it wasn't enough to get Ty Gibbs out of the car, who honestly, he did a pretty good job. First time in a 410, went out there and he made the A main in his heat, which is tough to do. I forget who else was in there, but definitely some 410 regulars that he beat out that normally you would expect to be going for that fourth or fifth position where the transfer is, and Ty did it all on his own. So he handled himself pretty well there. In the feature, however, Ty immediately flipped the shit on lap 3, kind of wrecked himself. I think he was trying to either get out of the way or I don't know what he was doing, but he definitely flipped the shit out of that car, which led to his pudding brain interview that he gave on Sunday with him and his Monster Energy girlfriends. Still pretty funny. Again, real rough weekend for track conditions. Like I said, the track was super rocky on account of not being run. I suppose Vegas has always been that way, but you know, the less you run a dirt track, the worse the track conditions are going to get when you try and open it back up. And unfortunately, Aaron Reitzel was a victim of that. Took a rock straight to the helmet. I don't know if it blew his visor open or if he just happened to have it cracked or something, but it got inside the helmet and broke his nose. And I think it rung his bell pretty good. They took him to the hospital, and he spent the night there, got some CT scans and all that. Apparently he's okay, aside from being a dumbass and not running a rock screen in a literal garden center from a Lowe's, which is what that track is. The feature itself was pretty good. There were a lot of cautions, a lot of stoppages, and which led to some guys running out of gas, including Darren Pittman, who was running the Kreitz 69K for Christopher Bell. Pittman had that shit sewed up. His fastest qualifier, drew the pole in the and whatever the fuck they do, the little wheel spin. I forget what the actual name is, but he drew the pole in the feature and led pretty much every lap up until he ran out of gas, which has sparked this whole argument online and in the sprint car circles about fuel tank sizes and race lengths and all that, and how High Limit should have been responsible for that. And, you know, there's arguments on all sides. I honestly don't have much of an opinion, but it did suck to see Darren Pittman run out of gas because he had that race just about locked up. And once he ran out of gas, High Limit threw the red flag and had an open red so everyone could come out and get gas, so the rest of the field would have enough fuel. So I understand why people are pissed about that. That was definitely a bummer to see. But Corey Day picked up the win. Of course, ARCA and truck star Corey Day picking up a win over Kyle Larson and Brad Sweet, the two guys who would really love to have that check in their back pocket because they just announced their franchise system. And there's been a lot of attempts at trying to like increase purses, get people to commit to your series by offering them money by being part of a leaders circle. You know, this is as old as racing is to get people to commit to your particular series, but High Limit has gone above and beyond here, and they've kind of put something out here that we really haven't seen in sprint car racing or short track racing at all before. They've debuted a franchise system, which who gets into this thing is already kind of in progress. Starting in 2026, the top 10 teams from the past 2 years, so 25 and 24, are getting what's called a franchise. I got to be honest, I don't know if there's guaranteed starts for this. I don't think there are, but I think just by committing to run the full High Limit series and commit to them, and by being one of those top 10 teams, you get a significant cash infusion at the end of the year. In 2026, the number one team gets $425,000, which that goes to $500,000 in 2027. After those 2 years, they add 5 more additional franchises, and the purse goes up even further for committing to the series. So big moves there. I got to be honest, I don't totally understand it, particularly how in the future there is the option to sell these things. I don't know who really has the budget to buy a franchise in High Limit necessarily. because you kind of see how it works in NASCAR with the charter system. And that's so, there's a whole, I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, there's a little bit of a lawsuit going on with that.
Yeah.
But the big difference with high limit is that it's permanent. You never lose this thing. So if you're Casey Kane Racing and you've got your charter for the 49 or your franchise for the 49, which I thought it was funny they chose to use that word because NASCAR won't. That's yours to keep for the rest of eternity until sprint cars don't exist anymore. So definitely making some big strides here. Definitely a huge shot across the bow of the World of Outlaws. Of course, the original Major 410 series and their direct competitor, who is already starting to lose big cars as the result of high limit becoming what it is. And yeah, I'm curious to see, if you got $500,000 guaranteed for winning the championship in your big game motorsports and you've got David Gravel driving your car, like that might be pretty tough to turn down in the future. So I'm curious to see if anyone defects going forward, trying to get these additional charters in a couple years, or franchises, excuse me. But certainly a huge development here, and I think it's safe to say this wouldn't have happened without the involvement of Kyle Larson. He's kind of the only guy with the cachet to make something like this happen and make all these partnerships to infuse all this cash into the series, which is certainly much needed. And this certainly thrusts sprint car racing into a much higher echelon than its competitors. So very curious to see how this plays out. It seems like teams are pretty happy. Seems like drivers are pretty happy. The fans, I don't think they really know what the fuck they're looking at. But it's pretty cool to see something like this in sprint car racing, and I'm curious to see what the response is going to be from World of Outlaws and even like late model series and everyone else running short track series in the U.S. This is going to definitely change things a little bit going forward. And
get some new media attention too.
Yes, yeah. Unfortunately, well, this is a smart move from Dirty Mo Media. Of course, alongside this big announcement, there was another announcement that the Teardown, featuring Jeff Gluck and our favorite penny loafer wearing curmudgeon Jordan Bianchi, are going to start covering that series as well. Hope Jordan's ready to get some mud all over his Buster Browns, or what's that's not a shoe brand. I don't even fucking know what. Whatever shoes Jordan wears, those little pointy fuckers are about to get pretty dirty covering it. So, but yeah, definitely interesting to see Dirty Mo getting in there. I really wish they would have chosen somebody else to do that.
Yes.
But I, as soft as I think Jeff Gluck's opinions are sometimes, like I feel like he's one of those guys who's already felt, he's never said this directly, I don't think, but I feel like he's felt kind of wronged by NASCAR and doesn't really care about the direction it's going in. And I think he sees this as an opportunity to sort of branch out and maybe find a landing spot if he ever gets tired of it. And it's a smart move, and Dirty Mo should cover dirt racing. So it's a perfect opportunity for them. So if you listen to the Teardown, again, friend of the program, Bobby Marcos, does produce that and does a great job. He has no control over the hosts and what sort of towel Jordan Bianchi puts behind his bed frame when he does the show. But Bobby does an excellent job. And that show's got big reach, so... more eyes and ears on it is never a bad thing. So I guess we'll see what kind of coverage that turns into. Let's see here. What else happened this weekend at High Limit? Oh, yeah, one more note here. Travis Pastrana took some laps in an RSR 410. Of course, that's the team that fields Corey Elias and Aaron Reitzel, who is currently laid up in the hospital with a busted face on account of being a dumbass and not running a rock screen. We already talked about that. This had dropped on, Wednesday, Tuesday of last week, of a blacked out car. With the number 199 on the top wing, which, that's Travis Pastrana's number, right? So immediately the wheels started turning. Is Travis going to run high limit? Can he even run a sprint car? What's this going to be? And apparently the graphic that they put up to sort of tease this, they didn't black the car out enough, and you could just change the contrast on your screen or in the photo and see the actual livery, which said, hell yeah, brother, up on the front of the top wing, which indicated Cletus McFarland's involvement as well. So I think the original plan was that two of them were going to take some hot laps in it and film some content and do all that, which Travis did. Apparently Cletus was too big to fit in the car because he's like 6'7" or something like that, so he couldn't do it. But Kyle Larson was out there hanging with them and all the high limit guys, and yeah, definitely would be cool to see Travis Pastrana try that racing out. And I'm curious to see if that comes to fruition later in the year. I certainly don't think they'll put him in place of Reitzel coming up, but definitely a pretty cool deal. What else happened? Oh, yeah, World of Outlaws ran down in Kennedale. Our friend of the program, Alex and Jordy, were down there. Friday track conditions were dog shit, and GL Selzy won, so that's about as bad as it gets for Alex. It really was bad. It was super windy. The track rubbered off super quick. In fact, there was a point where Dazen Pursley's top wing during qualifying was bent by the wind, like physically the metal bent because it was so strong. Maybe I'm conflating that with High Limit now that I'm thinking about it. But either way, windy conditions were at both tracks, and it was definitely no better down in Kennedale. Saturday was a little bit better. The track was in much better condition, and we saw a pretty good show with Buddy Kofoid taking the win. Yeah, that was pretty much it for sprint car racing. Alex had a good time, though on Friday night he said, "I can't believe I spent money to come down and watch this," because it was single file and it wasn't that good. But hey. Hanging out with your girlfriend at a dirt track. What else do you want?
Yeah,
Sometimes you have shitty races. I pay money to go watch 360s run in a fucking dirt field at Loudon, so you kind of got to get them when you can, I guess. Yeah. So I didn't feel too bad for him, but I hope they had a good time. The World of Outlaws late models were at Smoky Mountain. Bobby Pierce won a thriller over Jonathan Davenport and Nick Hoffman. It was a great race. Unfortunately, as True Love already mentioned, the severe weather that came through the south affected a lot of stuff, and the World of Outlaw late models were also a victim of this. As soon as the race was over, and I'd even heard some rumblings before the event even started on Friday night that Saturday was going to be preemptively canceled to get everybody out of there because there were some tornadoes that were going to come through. And that is what happened. They packed everybody up and went home, and I guess Bobby Pierce wins the weekend because he won the race. And that's it for the short track septic tank this week, but we do have a lot of stuff coming up this weekend. High Limit continues their West Coast swing at Tulare on Wednesday. They'll be at Kern County and Bakersfield on Friday, and then Paris on Saturday. The World of Outlaws are at Cotton Bowl down in Texas Friday and Saturday. The Lucas Oil late models are going to be at Atomic on Friday night and Brownstown on Saturday night. And then the World of Outlaw late models are going to be at Swainsboro for a 2-night stand. All these tracks put on great shows, and I look forward to watching as much as I can. Also on the pavement side, King of the Modifieds this weekend at South Boston, big Smart Tour show that features a lot of my favorite Yankees going to come down and try and take some money from those Southern drivers. Should be a good show. Again, that's Friday and Saturday night. And there's a lot more going on. Hickory's running. I believe Williams Grove is actually going to get a chance to open this weekend. And there's just a metric fuck ton of racing that's happening. So if you got nothing else in between waiting for Homestead to happen, we got something for you to watch. And if you, I don't have a special link to share with anybody anymore. That's pretty much all been shut down.
Damn.
Which is a bummer. But save your lunch money and get a Flow subscription because most of it is on there.
Yeah.
And with that, we'll go ahead and flush the short track septic tank down. Oh, real quick. I mentioned Wyatt Miller last week getting some starts in a late model, both on dirt and in pavement. I didn't realize that he'd already run his first pavement late model race at Hickory when we recorded last week, and apparently he picked up a second place in that race. So, kid's got speed, so good for him.
It does.
Now we can flush it down. It was going to be a longer flush, but I ran out of breath, and it was going to be a long flush because I'm not looking forward to talking about our video of the week all that much.
Oh, come on. All right, well, we have two.
Quick and painless.
We have two this week, and so the first one is Carl Edwards versus Michael Schumacher at the Race of Champions from, what the hell year was this? I don't know, late 2000s, early aughts, something like that.
I think it was still the era where Schumacher was king shit in Formula One, and Carl Edwards was still at Roush, I believe.
Yeah.
16 years ago.
Yeah. So yeah, 2009. Before we actually talk about the video itself, because the video is pretty short and there's not that much to talk about, but I did want to use this segment to talk a little about the Carl Edwards interview on Dale Jr. Download.
Yep.
I'm assuming y'all listened to it, and if you haven't,
incredible.
Yeah, it is definitely one of the best interviews I've heard in a long time. I mean, Junior has great interviews, but Carl hasn't really opened up that much about the end of his career and all the things that have gone through his head, and it was just a really open and honest interview, which he admitted like that last caution and NASCAR's Phantom cautions were one of the main reasons why he decided to retire. But at the same time, he also talked about potential head injuries and loss of time with his family, and just knowing that he would have to go through that entire process again, and this exact same thing can happen again, and he didn't want to do it anymore. And, whether you're a fan of his or not, I think that's one of those things you just have to respect, because he didn't have to get out of that car. He could have had plenty more years driving, but, to have it all just kind of snatched away just for a better TV product, and that's unfortunately how our championships are determined now. It's just one last race. I can totally understand, because he's not the only. I mean, there's plenty of drivers still driving today that are frustrated with the system, but he just didn't want to put up with it anymore. So, great interview. There was one weird little thing I noticed, and I don't know if anybody else caught it at the end, but he talked about motivating factors in life, and he talked about
I know exactly what you're gonna say,
like money and success and fame, and then he mentioned sex, and I was like, that's just a weird one to throw in there. Now you got me thinking about Carl Edwards fucking.
Yeah, I
don't want to think about that.
I want to hear some Carl Edwards fuck stories from back in the day now.
So, just a weird little line to throw in there. But again, great interview. Go watch it, listen to it, whatever. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I was never a Carl Edwards fan.
Same
on the track, but I'm certainly
a
fan of Carl Edwards, the man. It takes a lot to go out there and admit your shortcomings and be honest like he was, and I feel like that was probably pretty tough for him to do, but once he opened up, it really was an incredible interview. And like I said, I don't think there's another download episode that really comes close to it. Maybe the Bloomquist one. The Kenny Schrader one was good,
Yeah, I mean,
this is a top tier episode. And if you've never listened to that show or given a fuck about Carl Edwards, I assure you're going to want to tune into this. It's awesome.
Yes, and he still stayed pretty steadfast about not wanting to drive again, and he gave plenty of reasons why. But at the same time,
he's a boat guy now.
Yeah, I do feel like, and Junior pushed it real hard. I do feel like that door is open just a little bit for him to get into something at some point. I don't think it's going to be a cup car, but I mean, could I see him jumping in a Cars Tour race at some point?
Yeah,
absolutely. Why the hell not? So. We'll see what happens, but either way, he's back in NASCAR in some form this year, and I think it's going to be good to have him back around.
What'd you think, True Love?
I haven't listened to it yet because
what the fuck?
You didn't tell me this was part of our homework for this week.
You should have listened. You should have wanted to listen to this anyway.
I do want to listen to it, but I want to sit down and watch it because I saw in the clips that he gets emotional, so I wanted to watch and pay attention. So I haven't had time to fully dedicate 2 hours of my life to staring at Carl Edwards. So I'm definitely very much looking forward to it, but I haven't had time to sit down and watch it.
That's fair. There was a one more thing before we move on to the actual video. There's a pretty heavy moment at the end once the interview had ended where Dale kind of gets in his own head a little bit. And his big takeaway is, how he quit and how Dale has never imagined a life without racing, and he can't do it. And to see someone actually do it, it really kind of rocked him, and to know that it was possible. And, you get that out of Dale once in a while. He's not afraid to be vulnerable, but this was definitely a very real moment out of him. And I really, I enjoyed the shit out of it. It was awesome.
Yeah. So I picked this video mainly just because I wanted to just refresh my memory, because I'd seen this before. But I thought I remembered the announcers being a lot more condescending to Carl. I mean, they were, but not as much as they were, but not as much as I thought they were. In this clip, I don't know what they're driving. I don't know if they're Opels or what.
Little Abarth minis.
Okay, some little Mini Cooper type car on this indoor asphalt road course that it's one lane and it kind of splits in a different place, and they cross over and stuff.
So race champions, yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting race. I mean, I would definitely like to see some more of these, but I mean, the video starts off with, you see Michael Schumacher. He's like revving his engine and trying to warm up his tires, waiting to get out on the track. And then you see him like jokingly almost back into Carl Edwards, who's behind him, which I thought was funny. The announcers, they're very clearly expecting Michael to win. They say Carl's used to ovals, and they also at one point say he's just looking for the big curves and the bank turns, which they don't have him here. But pretty much almost immediately, Carl jumps out to a lead, and the announcers are just trying to come up with every single excuse that they can to explain why Michael isn't winning this. And first they say, oh, he must have made an error somewhere, and then they're talking about maybe he warmed up his tires too much, and then they also say, well, maybe they gave him too rotund of a passenger.
Yeah, because these cars have a ride along in them.
Yeah, so
really reaching there for any excuse.
So regardless of all the other bullshit the announcers try to make up, Carl goes out and smokes him by 2 seconds, which I guess apparently is a big lead in this type of racing. So really quick little watch, but just a reminder that I do think NASCAR guys, especially overseas or with F1 fans that have never watched any sort of like oval track racing, these guys are a lot more skilled than you would think, and I do think that if more of these battles were to take place, you'd probably see more NASCAR drivers winning them than F1 guys, but that's just me.
Yeah, Race of Champions is fun. I never watch it. It happens every year. It's an international competition where each country gets a team of drivers. So.
Yeah, is that what Kurt Busch is running this year as his comeback
Kurt Busch
race?
and Travis Pastrana, I believe, is his teammate. So yeah, but it's that level of guy. I think it was a bigger deal back in the mid-aughts. I mean, if you're getting Michael Schumacher, he was about the biggest thing in motorsports, period. Yeah. At that point. But yeah, it's definitely a fun deal. A lot of rally drivers come over there and do good for themselves. Marcus Ekstrom was over there in that particular year, and I think he won a few times. But it's a fun show, and it's definitely cool to see a bunch of guys from a bunch of different disciplines race these stupid-ass little Barts around.
Yep. Any final thoughts from you, True Love, before the main event?
I don't think so. It was 5 minutes long, so...
Yeah. Not much to really talk about. But now, moving on to what there is a lot to talk about, Lancelot Link and the Great Race. So, again, you guys had never seen this before at all, right?
Even after I watched it, I was like, no, this doesn't ring a bell.
I mean, because you guys are I'm only a couple years older than you. And like, even
I don't even know if you're older than me.
No, I am. You're what, 39?
40.
I'm
almost
41.
So you
I'm
are
41.
So I guess those few months really count when it comes to monkey-related television on cable.
Because I had Googled it, and it said that the reruns happened in '89. So I was definitely too young to.
So yeah, I mean, I
for
saw
that to
it.
Register.
I didn't have cable then. This was part. I watched it. So before my mom and stepdad got married, one of the ways that my stepdad ingratiated himself to me and my sister was, because we didn't have cable or anything at my house, he would make VHS mixtapes of all of our favorite shows and stuff. And for whatever reason, I don't know if maybe I saw it at my grandma's house or something, or maybe my stepdad just thought I would like it, but he put Lancelot Link on my tapes, and I loved it. Like, fucking love that show. Like, it's ridiculous and hilarious. And the show itself...
Ridiculous.
It was only on for 2 years, from 1970 and 1971. It was an ABC like Saturday morning show that, the full episodes had, they had 2 different Lancelot Link stories, and then there would be like little interstitial skits that were kind of based off of Laugh-In, and there would also be musical performances with the monkeys and stuff. Yeah. And the show was like very expensive to produce. I mean, when you have a whole cast and crew of monkeys and whatnot.
It definitely blew the budget on the monkeys, I'll say that.
Yeah. So what happened when they would film these is, what they would do is they'd film everything, and then the voiceover stuff afterwards, they would do their best to mimic what the monkeys were doing, so that they'd have to do a lot of ad-libbing and like playing off like just the interactions of the monkeys and stuff, which will like at one point during this video you can see them kind of like they shake each other's hands and they talk about that, and it's like that definitely was not part of the script.
They couldn't get these monkeys to quit shaking hands, so they had to write it into the script. Once I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, the script is
non-existent.
I mean, there is obviously a script, but yeah, I mean they have to.
There's a plot, but they
a loose idea.
So again, I remembered there was a racing episode, so that's why I chose this one. So again, a brief synopsis of the show. It's kind of based off of Get Smart, which, I mean, there was a reboot of that a few years ago, so I'm sure probably most people are at least somewhat familiar with Get Smart. But Get Smart was like a comedy spoof, like spy show, kind of like, based off of 007 and stuff, and kind of playing off of that. But, the main character was Lancelot Link. He had his partner Mata Hari, and then Chump, which were the it was like I forget the exact like what the analogy is, but or the what the name means, but it was this entire group of international evildoers, and they all definitely played up some racial stereotypes with some of these names, like the Dragon Lady and Ali Assassin and whatnot. So again, this show was filmed over 50 years ago, so a little bit different time.
Yeah,
so
the very Chinese monkey that shows up in credits.
So the premise of this is Chump is entered into the International 500 race, which somehow there's only 2 cars in this race. There's the Chump car, and then there's a car driven by a monkey named Chimp. They're not monkeys. Chimps aren't monkeys. I should correct myself. Driven by this chimp named Parnelli Smith, obviously based off of Parnelli Jones at the time.
With Jackie Stewart's voice.
Yep. And so the episode starts out, and you see Parnelli Smith working on his car, and because of Chump's presence, Lance is there to protect him. They're working on the car, and Lance is farting around, and he accidentally hits a horn in the car, which race cars don't have horns.
This one does.
This one does, and this leads to a miscommunication where they decide to go and get lunch. And Parnelli talks about, shouldn't we lock up in case, Chump messes with our cars? And Lance is like, with me around, don't worry about it. And what happens? Chump goes and messes with his car, and they mess with his car. We get Credo, who is the chauffeur for the Chump organization, and their top body and fender expert, who just go in and just start bashing this car with a hammer.
Hanging on it with hammers.
Yeah. So when they come, Lance and Mata come back, and they start working on the car. And at one point, Lance touches the wet paint of the car, so they have to go and get more paint. Then while they're out, Parnelli is attacked by Credo and Baron Von Butcher with what is called a knockout drop, which is just a big heavy bag that says knockout drop on it. And
a bag of sand.
They like hide in the rafters and drop it on his head and knock him out. So this leads to the start of the race, and without a driver, Lance decides to get in and run the race. This is where the old ape handshake line, and they're like patting each other on the back and stuff, and they have to, the voiceover actors have to acknowledge what they're doing. Baron notes that
chip stuff.
Baron tells Credo that he doesn't think he can win, so it's time for dirty tricks. So he's got a few things up his sleeve for the actual race. And again, even though this was a kids show, they have a trophy girl there who is actually an international celebrity, Raquel Wench, which, again, for a kid's show, I don't know if I'd be using wench. Not that it's like a R-rated term or anything, but, it's a little derogatory.
Well, for pumping chimpanzees full of drugs to make a TV show, I guess doesn't really matter.
I like that there was also a jealous wife chimp, too.
Well,
yeah,
no, hold on. Mata Hari and Lance are not actually, so they're not actually ever acknowledged as a real couple, but there's always like this tension between the two of them, and they're always kind of flirty, but they're partners. But yeah,
she definitely didn't want Miss Winch smooching on him.
Yeah, Mata did not want that at all. So the race starts, and Credo starts off taking the lead, and we should also mention that these are just go-karts, and what are they based off, like old Indy cars or whatever, Rob? Like I can't.
Yeah, something like that.
They sort of look like old Indy cars, like old
front engine roadsters. Yeah, like old Formula One shit. Yeah.
And it's funny that obviously throughout this race, they do their best to mask the fact that it's obviously human beings and monkey masks driving these things, but you do get one or two little brief shots of the actual faces of the drivers, which I really enjoyed. Yeah. So yeah, Baron starts off. Credo takes the lead, and his first dirty trick, which is such a ridiculous thing, is to just stop and ask Lance for directions. And Lance pulls out this map, and as he's fumbling with this map and can't fold it back together, Credo just takes off.
Genius.
Doesn't work
Got his ass.
because Lance has a supercharger in his car. Apparently, he catches back up. It's briefly mentioned.
You can just turn that on, huh?
Yeah. So Lance catches back up, and we see some Joseph Newgarden style moves in the sense of Credo just weaving back and forth in front of.
They were definitely doing the snake. That's for sure.
Yeah, they were just weaving back and forth in front of him, trying to keep him from passing. But eventually, he gets around him. However, Baron's tricks aren't done yet because his next trick is to put a turn right sign later in the course. He thinks Lance is going to fall for that. Lance does not fall for it and ends up winning the race. And Credo...
Chimps can't read.
Yeah, Credo does and ends up crashing the go-kart. And that's it. Afterwards, yes, Lance wins. Mata does not let Raquel Wench give him the kiss and leans in, and that is the end of the race.
There's some smooching. We get some chimp smooching.
Yeah, there's a bit of chimp smooching going on. And the clip itself ends with the intro to the Evolution Revolution musical segment, and it's basically just ripped off of Ed Sullivan. You see this little chimp doing the Ed Sullivan pose and spinning around and stuff. If you haven't gone out of your way to watch the Evolution Revolution videos, do it because they're amazing. Like I can't recommend Lance Longnick enough. I love this show, and I think it's hilarious and ridiculous. And there's only 17 episodes, so it's not like there's a ton of it out there to watch. But what did you guys think?
Well, I thought I knew what this was. I thought by looking at the thumbnails last week when we were talking about it, I think I remember this. I don't at all remember this show. And I don't know. I just really want to know what kind of drugs they were pumping into those chimpanzees to make them spin around like that. Yeah, lots of manic chimp energy. Lots of kissing. Realizing that there wasn't a script. I spent way too long looking at these fucking go-karts trying to figure out what they were before I got annoyed at myself. I was like, there's no point in trying to figure this out. I can see why this only lasted 2 years. I'm sure the production was strenuous and very difficult to be a part of. And I don't know if I'll be checking out the rest of this, but it's certainly a neat little time capsule for when this shit would have flown. Because you certainly couldn't make the show anymore.
Very briefly in the 90s, somebody did actually try to do, I don't know if it was on Spike TV or something, but there was some more modern type monkey show. But again, it didn't last very long. And yeah, you definitely couldn't do it now.
Yeah, no one was tuning into Spike TV for the chimpanzee content. So, what'd you think, True Love? I'm really curious to hear.
I didn't hate it. I laughed a lot because it was so overly ridiculous. Like, it was a nice, wholesome, silly, quick watch.
Yeah.
And I kept seeing screenshots of another episode where there's one of the chimps is riding a motorcycle, so I think I will be finding that one and watching it at least.
Excellent.
But probably not anything beyond that. But yeah, I didn't hate it. I thought it was funny. I got some laughs out of it. So.
Yeah, definitely more entertaining than an ARCA East race, that's for sure.
Yeah,
so.
Or Blippy.
I mean, yeah, I knew you guys wouldn't totally hate this video, but
it's fine. Yeah. It made me feel itchy, but it was fine.
I just always get a kick out of introducing it to people because I just feel like I remember it so much more than people my age or even older. I don't know why it's such a strong memory in my brain, but I remember like 20 something years ago when the DVDs came out, I like immediately bought those. And as I mentioned before, every girlfriend I've showed this to has hated it. So
perfect.
Yeah.
That's why I'm single.
Well, it's been a minute, but anyways, let's not talk about my sad dating life. For next week, we're going back to just a little more of a normal video of the week here. Obviously, NASCAR is going to be at Homestead this weekend, which we're all excited about, but the weekend after, they're going to be in Martinsville. So we're going to watch a Martinsville modified race from 1989.
Yes.
It's a complete race. It's about an hour long, but that's already on the playlist now.
That's what's up.
Nice.
Now we're talking. A little apology to Rob here.
The week, I'm sure I'll find something awful.
Yeah, I know I'm not off the hook for the rest of the year, but that's going to be awesome.
Yeah. It's not like I made you guys watch the Morgan Shepherd interview, which
I watched
could
it.
have. Could have.
We'll
Anyway,
save that
so
for
yeah.
a rainy day. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Homestead this weekend. It's Homestead. It's gonna be good. All
great.
3 series will be there. I'm sure we'll be watching all of them. So that'll be what's on the episode next week. It's still a little too cold to do any racing stuff up here. I will be going to Darlington in a few weeks though, so that'll be my first race of the year.
Nice.
I'm assuming you guys aren't doing any racing stuff this weekend either.
No, not this weekend. The Icebreaker's coming up, which is going to be cool. I'm going to try to at least go to one of the shows there. And then Supercross is next on my list after that. But yeah, next couple weeks, just going to enjoy my time at home before shit picks up around here in New England. What about you, True Love?
I'm going to a car show in Chattanooga this weekend, but no racing until April, and then I'll have back-to-back weeks, I think. So.
Nice.
Cool. Well, as always, you can follow us at Meet Me at Applebees on Instagram, Meet Me at Bees on Twitter, Speedway screens and all the things. SpeedwayTSJ.etsy.com is the shop, and the 40% off sale is still going strong. So go help fund my racing dreams.
Yeah, buy this man some tires, for fuck's sake.
It's still Snake Mountain _True Love. That's it. There's nothing going on in my life.
It gets less enthusiastic every time.
Yep.
Rob Moats _unofficial on Instagram. My band's called These Wild Plains. We are going to be announcing some shows pretty soon, along with Charlie Marie, and that's going to be fun. I can't say anything just yet, but those official announcements will be coming up, and you can come see me all over New England and elsewhere in just a few short weeks, folks, and I'm looking forward to it.
Nice.
Cool. Well, with that, looks like the check is here. So thank you for once again joining us at Applebee's, and we'll talk to y'all next week.
There's a really short chimp walking up here with our check right now. I don't know how you arranged that, but I'm really proud of you, Brian.
Wearing an Applebee's apron.